Tests in this category are designed to verify how gracefully the system behaves in error situations. It has to be prompted with certain information when the battery power reaches less than the threshold value. The goal is to verify that the system gracefully and quickly recovers from the hardware and software failures without adversely impacting the operation of the system. The system needs to service the request of each and every user who wants to access the data items at the same time. Hello and warm welcome to one and all. It is Dr. Ravi Kumar YB, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. In the previous sessions, you had been taught about the different types of tests. In addition to that, let me give you the more detailed information of the types of tests that are carried out before the software is delivered to the stakeholders. That is the robustness test. As I have already discussed with you in the previous session, suppose if there is any information that is going to be erroneous from the input, in such cases it has to bring the information to the user that this is the mistake committed by the user while entering the input into the system. That is called as a robustness test. Tests in this category are designed to verify how gracefully the system behaves in error situations and in a changed operational environment. The types of robustness test includes boundary value, second one power cycling, third one online insertion and removal, fourth one high availability, fifth one degraded node. Let me take up the example of the communication system. In case of a communication system, suppose when they wants to enter some data, that is between 10 to 20 is the interval value specified here. If he tries to enter anything which is greater than 20, that is 21, or less than 10, that is 9, then it has to be informed to the user that this is the boundary condition. You have to specify the range of values within that interval. That means an information is to be presented to the user about the mistake committed by the user while entering the input. Then power cycling. This also includes that suppose if you look at the mobile phones, that is Android mobile phones, you will be alerted with certain battery information. What is that battery information? That is also a software which is designed to incorporate into the system so that the users are prompted about the threshold of the battery. When the battery range reaches less than the threshold, then he has to be prompted with the information. That is called as power cycling. Then online insertion and removal. That is another important type of online type of test that is given to the stakeholder. That means online insertion and removal of the bugs which may occur at the time of running in the user's site. High availability. High availability means always the system must be made available to the user. That is similar to the safe sequence type of operational. That means the system must work in an operational state for a longer period of time. That is called as high availability. The degraded node. Again, this comes in the communication system in which when one of the nodes are not working properly, then an alternative node must be used as a path to send a message from one sender node to the recipient nodes. It is called as the different types of robustness test. Then the boundary value, please see to it here. I have already explained about the boundary conditions, that is the special values and the system defaults are called as the boundary values. What about this? The test includes providing invalid input. Please see here the invalid input given to the system and observing how the system reacts to the invalid input. The information must be given to the user properly. Then we have power cycling tests. Power cycling tests are executed to ensure that when the power glitch in a deployment environment of the system can recover from the glitch to back in the normal operation after the power is restored. I gave you the example of the battery power of a mobile phones. He has to be prompted with certain information when the battery power reaches less than the threshold value. That means it has to work in the normal operational mode. Online insertion and removal. That means online support must be provided to the user. Online insertion and removal, also called OIR tests, are designed to ensure that online insertion and removal of modules incurred during both the idle and heavy load operations are gracefully handled and recovered. That means with the help of an online support, the system, if there is any problem with the working of the system, that has to be recovered properly. That is called as online insertion and removal of the bugs which may arise at the time of executing the programs in user's site. Then high availability. High availability is also known as fault tolerance. That means the program or the system must work for a longer period of time. It is the redundancy of individual modules, including the software that controls these modules, must be made available. That means the tests are designed to verify the redundancy. That means the irrelevant information, the repeated information is going to occur in the individual modules, that has to be rectified very properly in these modules with the help of high availability test. Other point to be noticed here is the system must work for a longer period of time. Please see here, maximize the system uptime and minimize the downtime. That is the main thing you need to notice here, and this is very, very important for this point of high availability. The goal is to verify that the system gracefully and quickly recovers from the hardware and software failures without adversely impacting the operation of the system. That means it has to work for a longer period of time. That means the service, maximize the service uptime and minimize the service downtime, system service downtime. That is the meaning of this. The degraded node. You will see that in the communication systems that suppose if there is any failure of one of the modules or failure of any one of the nodes, then alternatively verify the operation of the system, that is the portion becomes non-operational. It uses a test called mission critical applications. Mission critical application, which includes that when one of the nodes is not in operationing state, then it has to be made operational by providing an online support to it, or alternatively we can use any other nodes to deliver the messages from sender side to the recipient's site. That is called as the degraded node. In spite of all those things, if the system works, then we say that the system is robust enough to work in the tedious environment. Then interoperability test. What about the interoperability test? As I have already told you, if the program works in Windows environment, that must also have the capability to work in other environments. Operate with third-party products as well. That is called as, which includes the licensed products. That is called as the interoperability operations. The reconfiguration activities during the interoperability tests is known as the configuration testing. It is also called as the configuration testing. The other name for interoperability test is also called as the configuration testing. Next one, backward compatibility. That means what? We have backward compatibility test. Compatibility tests verifies that the system works in the same way across different platforms. For example, operating systems, that is Windows operating system or Unix operating system, database management system, whether it is Oracle 9 version or it is 10G version or anything, it doesn't matter for it. It has to work properly in different platforms. That is the meaning of interoperability tests. Backward compatibility includes tests verify that the current software built flawlessly works with older versions of the platforms. That means it can be either upgraded or downgraded so that it has to work properly with accurate performance of a system. That is called as the backward compatible of tests of a software. Then performance tests. Please note that in case of performance test, we will come across the response time taken by the system to produce an output for an input given by the user is called as performance test. That means the response time, execution time, throughput, resource utilization and traffic rate, all these are certain type of performance criteria that measures the performance of a software. Then one needs to be clear about the specific data to be captured in order to evaluate the performance metrics. The metrics may be in terms of response time, in terms of execution time, in terms of throughput or resource utilization and traffic rate. All these are certain types of performance metrics based upon which we calculate and assess the performance of the software. The performance of a software also includes the end-to-end response time as seen by external user. As soon as he gives input to the system, the response that is returned to him from the software is very, very essential. That is called as the response time. The CPU time, that is the computational time taken by the system to perform the calculations, that is called as the CPU time. Then the network connection time. Suppose if you want to interact with any of the end users, that is from sender side to the remote site, then it has to be worked properly with network connection time. Then database access time. It has to give access properly to the database in a short span of time. Then network connection time, this is repeated. Then waiting time. What is the meaning of waiting time? As you have already seen that in the operating system, the time that has to be waited for which by the processors is called as the waiting time to get it executed. That is called as the waiting time. All these are certain types of criteria that measures the performance of a system. Then scalability test. Please note that all these are based upon these criteria. What is the meaning of scalability test? That means if any new feature is to be incorporated. Then it must allow them to incorporate new feature. It must allow them to incorporate new features. Into an existing system. That is called as the scalability test. It must be scalable enough to incorporate any new features into the existing system. That is the meaning of this. Let me see to it. Tests are designed to verify that the systems can scale up to the engineering limits. The same thing. We can incorporate any new features to it. Then scaling tests are conducted to ensure that the system response time remains the same or increases by small amount as the number of users are increased. When the number of users tries to access the same system at the same time across a network, then the throughput may also be decreased because the system needs to service the request of each and every user who wants to access the data items at the same time. So the performance is also a matter. At that time, the scalability also comes into the picture. The scalability tests include three major limitations. One is data storage limitation. That is when they want to access the same data item at the same time. The network bandwidth limitation and speed limit. These are the different types of limitations which the users will come across in terms of scalability tests. Then extrapolation is often used to predict the limit of scalability. What is the meaning of extrapolation here? It is often used to predict the limit of scalability. Suppose if you take up the example of hotspot, what is the scalable features of it? You can connect up to 8 systems with that. That is the upper limit. You cannot connect more than that. Suppose if there is a feature incorporated into it, 2 to the power of 3 is equal to 8. Then 2 to the power of 4 is equal to 16. Up to 16 members can be connected to the system. Then the number of users increases. Then automatically the bandwidth is shared among multiple users. That also decreases the performance of the system. That is also one of the important type of scalability test. Then stress test. What is the meaning of stress test here? when it is to be evaluated to determine the behavior of the software components while the offered load is excess to its design capacity. That means it takes more load into the system. That is the input given to them from multiple users. Then the system is deliberately stressed by pushing it into beyond its specified limits. But of course, we have to utilize the CPU for a maximum amount of time in terms of cycles per second. But at the same time, there is also a threshold limit up to which we can load the data into the system. It ensures that the system can perform acceptably under worst case conditions under an expected peak load. That means optimized load is given to it. If the limit is exceeded and the system does fail, then the recovery mechanism should be invoked. Then automatically it has to recover from the state of the fully loaded, that is from the stress conditions. That is called as the automated recovery tools are used there to make the system recover from the stressed condition, that is from fully loaded conditions. These tests are targeted to bring out the problems associated with one or more, that is memory leak and buffer allocation and memory craving. It is not carving, it is craving. What is the meaning of craving? Memory leak means overflow of data. Craving means shortage of data, shortage of memory. This is overflow of data. This is shortage means underflow of data. We have a shortage of memory. Those are the two limitations in which it works. That is called as stress testing that has to be conducted. Load and stability tests. When a large number of users are introduced, that means are given access to the system, application that runs for months without restarting, the number of problems are likely to occur, which is that the system slows down because multiple users are trying to access the same system and the resources of the system at the same time. The system encounters functionality problems. The system crashes altogether. All these are certain types of problems which may occur when multiple users are given access to the system. That is called as load and stability tests. The load and stability testing are typically involves exercising the system with virtual users. That means there seems to be connected, but they are not directly connected to the system. That means the resources of the system are not at all used. Their local system is used for resources. That is called as virtual users. That measures the performance to verify whether the system can support the anticipated load or not. This kind of testing helps one to understand the ways the system will fare in real life situations. That is called as load and stability testing. Reliability testing. I have given the information of all this in the previous session as well. I am giving it in more detailed information. What is the meaning of reliability test? Please notice that mean time to failure, MTTF, is very, very important here. Mean time test. What is the average time required to perform the operation? If it takes more than that, then we say that the system is not reliable. If it does the task within the specified time, then we say that the system is reliable. If I send a message from my mobile phone to my friend's mobile, it has to be delivered immediately. If I send it today and if it delivers tomorrow, then it is not called as a reliable, because there is a problem of navigating the routes. That means navigation of data from one place to the other place has taken more time, the navigation time. So the average of all the time intervals between successive failures are called as MTTF. After a failure is observed, the developers analyze and fix the defects, which consumes some time. Let us call this interval as repair time, recovery time. We have to bring the system to the normal state. That is called as the repair time. The average of all the repair times is called as mean time to repair. Then, now we calculate the mean time between failure. That means MTBF is equal to MTTF plus MTTR. So, the random testing techniques discussed here is used for reliability measurement. You will see it in different chapters, but the chapter which I am discussing now is presently in the syllabus. So I am considering only up to the reliability tests. Even there are different types of tests that are conducted on in software products, but those are not available in your syllabus. So I am considering only the relevant information and discussing it here. Then regression test. These new tests are not designed, instead test cases are selected from the existing pool of executed. The main idea in regression testing is to verify that no defect has been introduced into the unchanged portion of the system due to changes made somewhere else in the system, while allowing the data to flow from one module to another module, and if any changes are made in one of the module, that must not get affected into any other modules. That is called as the regression testing. During system testing, many defects are revealed and the code is modified to fix those defects. That is called as regression testing. There are 4 different scenarios in which we can fix the bug with the help of this regression testing. First one is the reported defect is fixed. The second one is could not be fixed in spite of making an effort. The third one is has been fixed but something that used to work before has been failing. First one is the defect is fixed. Second one is could not be fixed in spite of making an effort. The third one is some of the defects have been fixed but not everything. Fourth one is the reported defect could not be fixed in spite of an effort and something that is used to work before has been failing. These are the 4 different scenarios in which the regression testing is conducted. The regression testing is to re-execute every test case from version n-1 to n before testing anything new. Full list of system may be prohibitively expensive. What is the meaning of this? We have a test case 1, test case 2, test case 3, test case 4, so on up to test case n. What is this? Test case n-1. From here to here, we have to calculate the different types of test cases in which we have to say that the system is working properly in all the 4 situations. A subset of the test case is carefully selected from the existing test suite to maximize the likelihood of the uncovering new defects. Then reduce the cost of testing. The cost of testing must also be reduced by maximizing the likelihood of uncovering new defects. There must not be any new defect in it. Then we can obviously minimize the testing efforts and the budget. Methods for test selection for regression testing has been discussed. So it is not there in your syllabus. That is, methods are not there in your syllabus. Documentation tests. Documentation tests involves verifying technical accuracy and readability of the user manuals, tutorials and online help. That means if there is any help needed for running the system, that is the software system, it must be given to him. That is, the information must be given to him in the form of online help or in the form of manuals or in the form of tutorials. Documentation testing is performed at 3 levels. One is read test, which includes the documentation is reviewed for clarity, organization, flow and accuracy without executing the documented instruction on the system. That means only the read operation is performed here. That means the users who wants to use the system can read the data or read the contents presented to him. That is the meaning of that. Then hands-on test, that means the practical experience. That means, let me take up an example for this. Suppose if there is any mistake that has occurred while executing the software product, then he has to be given with certain examples. For this problem, this is the solution. So that after going through the solution, he can recover the system from uninterrupted services. That means when the system is entered into an unsafe sequence, he can recover the system from unsafe to safe sequence. That means uninterrupted services. That means we can give the continuous availability of the system. That is called as the hands-on test. That means practical information is given to him in the form of examples. Then functional test. This includes the embodied into the documentation to verify that the system works as it has been documented. That means according to the collection of requirements done in the form of SRS, it is working according to that. That is called as a functional test. Then regulatory test. The regulatory test includes the final system is shipped to the regulatory bodies in those countries where the product is expected to be marketed. That means the idea is to obtain the compliance marks on the product from various countries. Example, EMC, electromagnetic compatibility, EMI, electromagnetic interference, compliance certificates, emission and immunity. All these are certain types of regulatory bodies. They must certify the working principle of the software product. That means in the foreign countries, if any tests are to be carried out on the mechanical devices, that means electromechanical devices, then it is incorporated with embedded software. Then this must be cross-verified and the certificate must be issued from these regulatory bodies in foreign countries to indicate the quality of the software product to the client. See here, the regulatory agencies are interested in identifying flaws in software that have potential safety consequences. The safety requirements are primarily based on their own published standards, because each and every company will be having their own standards. Then it has to be developed according to the minimum standards of the agencies which is specifying, so that the quality product is delivered to the stakeholders. Then software safety. The software safety includes the physical situation which, when combined with certain environmental conditions, could lead to an accident or mishap. So the system, an hazardous state of a system, that means when the number of users tries to access the system at the same time, in case of online applications, then it leads to an hazardous situation. The performance of a system also degrades. That has to be controlled. An accident or mishap is an unintended event or series of events that results in death, injury, illness, damage or loss of property or harm to the environment. So software safety is designed in terms of hazards. A software is an isolation which cannot do physical damage. However, a software in the context of system and an embedded environment could lead to a vulnerable situations. So they must keep an eye on it. Then examples. A software module in a database application is not hazardous by itself, but when it is embedded in a missile navigation system, it could be hazardous. Please notice this. This is very, very important. How we can say that it is hazardous? That is, when the software is embedded into a missile navigation system, it could become hazardous if it does not works properly according to the schedule of time in which it was supposed to be launched or targeted to the enemy missile. Then, if a missile takes a U-turn because of the software error in the navigation system and destroys the submarine that launched it, then it is not a safe software. So we can incorporate the software, but there must not be any negative effects on it. Safety assurance, which includes provide methods for identifying, tracking, evaluating and eliminating hazards associated with the system. And second point is to ensure that the safety is embedded into the design and implementation in a timely and cost-effective manner, such that the risk created by the user or operator error is minimized. That is called as the safety assurance. The safety assurance also includes the cryptography of that, which I have already discussed. So with this, I am concluding this session. Thank you very much. Thank you one and all.